Hello, my name is Jonah. I am a game developer. I am the founder of Bumblebean Games. I'm sure you've heard of it. We're like super big or whatever. A little bit about me. I studied architecture college, where I also sang a cappella.
Please don't stop watching because I said that.
I can sense you browsing for a new video. I am actually not the biggest gamer. But I do love creating games and creating atmospheres and ecosystems for people to play in. During the pandemic, I couldn't find work like everybody else, and I could only make so many sourdough loaves until my hands got super dry because of the dough or whatever. I don't know how that works. And so I decided to start learning how to make games. I had very little coding background, so I started watching tutorials on YouTube, where I also learned there is a video tutorial for everything, and I started making my first game, No Can Do, which is still in development, low-key. But that is not what this video is about. I have been working on a game called Ewe Shall Not Pass for the past few months. That is a tongue twister. The gist of the game is that you play as Shmandalf the wizard and have to herd your sheep through lands unknown while defending them against the baddies that are trying to eat them. In between playthroughs, you rest at your farm, you grow crops, you manage your little home base. It's a good time. It's sort of Stardew Valley meets Vampire Survivors meets Lord of the Rings meets sheep herding, but wait for it, on a budget of $0. So let's bring your expectations down. The game started, as many do, and how most of my games have started, which is with a game jam. The theme of this game jam was an end is a new beginning, and I thought it would be fun to do that scene when Gandalf gets in a fight with the Balrog and falls off the bridge. I saw that as a new end. What could his new beginning have looked like if things had gone differently? I was inspired by a game called Vampire Survivors. If you're unfamiliar, that's a game where you just control the movement of a 2D character, and you have weapons auto-firing at enemies as you try and navigate your character around a super crowded screen. I thought it would be an interesting twist to have to defend something else rather than yourself. So I added sheep to the game that you could bully around the screen, and your success in the game is their survival, not your own. As an extra challenge, I streamed the whole week on Twitch with no prior experience streaming and no prior experience on Twitch. To start building the game, I needed a scene. I wanted to demo up those systems that would control the sheep herding. So I whipped up some assets and threw in some code, and I got a sheep herding system going. I wanted some assets to make it look good, so I made a player, I made the sheep asset, I made an enemy, and a ground texture. I made a magic orb that you shoot, and I breathed some life into all of it with just a little bit of code. I coded up a system that would keep track of your high score, I composed an orchestrated theme song, and I whipped up a home screen so that the game would be a game, all while chatting with those that wandered through my stream on Twitch. Shout out to Ketchup. By the end of the week, I had a game up and running. A game, technically, playable, barely, but I had a game up and running. In this version of the game, there was only one map, there was only one enemy. The goal was to get a high score. It was to replay the same map again and again, as many times as you could before you would lose all your sheep. At the time, your herd looked like your grandma got stuck anamorphing into a llama. There were no magic spells, there was no farm to manage, no home base, and the map never changed. There were about 5 people who played it on itch, and they didn't hate it, and that gave me enough energy to keep at it. I wanted to make this a playable game, a game that you didn't hate while you played it, and there were 2 things I wanted to add that I thought would do that. A scene that would let you interact with your sheep, and a scene that would let you buy upgrades and items. For the sheep scene, I wanted you to be able to see how long certain sheep had survived. I wanted you to be able to name your sheep, and I wanted you to be able to shear your sheep for wool based on how old they were. Doing this wasn't too hard. I just added some code to the sheep that would keep track of their age, and a little sheep shearing system that was actually easier than I expected. The marketplace was a different story. If I wanted to add things to the marketplace, I would need to add things to buy. The first thing I wanted to add was a way to lure sheep. Players had complained that once sheep got stuck in a corner, there was no way to get them out because in the game, you herd sheep by pushing them, and once they're in a corner, they have nowhere to go. So I added a lure that when dropped would pull all the sheep out of the corners. If I had a defensive item though, I wanted an offensive item.
Obviously.
So I added a firework in reference to that scene in the Shmaya, where Shmandalf, oh my gosh, releases fireworks. It's a blast. So now there's an item that does area of effect damage to enemies when you place it and set it off. Now I had items, I would need some kind of player inventory.
No. A player inventory would be scope creep.
Okay, we won't worry too much about an inventory. But you can't have a wizard game without spells, right? So we added spells. The first spell was a lasso spell, addressing the same issue that the lure did. When you shoot a sheep, you would pull it towards you so that you could get it out at tight spots.
Okay, that's not too bad. That's still tight. That's still clean, yeah.
Thank you, yeah. The second spell was a shield spell that when you shot a sheep, it would surround it in a shimmering glow that would deflect enemies that got too close.
Okay, that's pretty good. Yeah, that's not too bad.
Thank you, yeah, I didn't think so. The third spell was a freeze spell that would freeze all the enemies in a scene temporarily.
Okay, I hear you. It's starting to get a little out of hand. Just a little. Just keep an eye on it.
Okay, heard, yeah, I hear you. Just one more. The fourth spell was a polymorph spell that would turn enemies into flowers and butterflies.
Okay, I think we're really getting out of hand here. I told you to keep a lid on it. I wanted it to be tight. It's getting real.
Okay, calm down. Oh my gosh, that's it. We're done. No more spells. But we'll want some items to pad out that marketplace. So just a few items. So we added a few items. We had something that would speed up your reload time, something that would increase the duration of the freeze spell, and something that would make your lasso a little bit stronger, among a few other things. Nothing too bad. Look at that. We have a game. We have a small, viable game that we could release, people might enjoy, and we could be done.
No! You are an imposter who makes little games that no one will ever see or care about. Give me more. Make more.
That is my imposter syndrome, my inner saboteur, as RuPaul would call it. Everyone has one. Mine doesn't let me release games because it thinks they'll never be good enough. And so I just have to keep working on them. And that is where my scope creep comes from. What happened next is what I like to call the addition of many things. Over the course of a few months, I somehow made this game both a farming sim and a deck building roguelike. Your guess is as good as mine. I don't know. I added a power-up system, a deck building power-up system, and over 30 power-ups to fill that. I added 8 new spells. I added 3 more distinct regions, each with their own enemy, soundtrack, and art. I added a boss fight and different endings based on how that boss fight goes. And I added a home base. And with that home base, I added a ton of different crops to grow, a crop growing system, fishing, home repairs. I added an achievement system and lots of new items in the marketplace. And if I'm being honest, I'm not done adding things. I am a game dev addict. I love making new content for my games.
I just can't be stopped.
I don't know what to tell you. I will be exploring all of that content that I just talked about in more detail in part 2. As a little added bonus, this is the intro that opened the game after the 1-week game jam.
You defeated the Balrog and perished yourself. But an end is a new beginning, and a chance for a new life. A simple life. Years later, evil lurks. Defend the herd you've come to love.
If you liked this video, leave a like, leave a comment. It really bolsters my will to live. And happy gaming. See ya.